All right. Well, this is a rare video with both of us in here, and we also actually have a guest. This is Jen from The Sewing Report. We are going to do some really fun chatting about this entire Cricut debacle. And honestly, not just Cricut. We want to talk about something that's kind of come up from this, which is Cricut influencers in general, cosplay influencers, and how these folks have a role, not just in the community ecosystem, but what kind of responsibilities they have, what kind of role they play in the marketing of a product. And, if you are an influencer or are looking to become an influencer, what kind of things should you be on the lookout for, be wary of, and understand what your obligations are? There's a lot to unpack. I'm sure it's going to get very saucy.
I'm ready to get spicy.
Yeah. My brain was like, I want to say spicy, but that means a thing now.
That means something now. Yeah.
It does? What is spice? Okay, I feel like I'm out of the loop.
It's like not quite lewd, but getting there.
It's like lewd light.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say we have a guest, which is Crunchies.
Yes.
We have a fourth guest. We have three people.
Okay.
Regan, Scone, Jen, and Crunchies. Her real name is Viola, but she's very sweet.
Aww.
I love you. So to get started, why don't we actually start with what launched 1,000 ships this week, which is the entire Cricut debacle, which if you guys are not aware of, both we and Jen also have several great videos on that. There's actually another video that has been posted today with a deep dive into the SEC report on Jen's channel. But for this video, there's an interesting aspect to this, and that is the role that Cricut influencers are actually playing. There's not as much of this going on in the cosplay community. So, Jen, I actually want to...
Because they don't have any
cosplay influencers, but there are influencers in the crafting, blogging, sewing community. And so, Jen, what have you been noticing actually with what has been going on here?
Man, this has been insane. As most everyone knows, if you aren't aware, Cricut rolled out a change to policy that really outraged the whole Cricut community when they were going to limit free versions of their software design space, which you have to use with your Cricut machine, to 20 uploads per calendar month if you have the free version. So this really started a firestorm among the community. And as we know, Cricut is hugely community-based. Word of mouth is a big thing. And a lot of frustration, I think, was felt for Cricut's stable of influencers. So Cricut does have people that they send free products to or also pay as sponsored influencers. And I think there was a lot of frustration towards these people because a lot of these people have channels pretty much largely dedicated to Cricut, and a lot of them were kind of silent on the matter or were sort of, I saw a lot of deflection. Like they would say, hey, I know a lot of you are kind of bound to the policy, but here's a hack for dealing with it. Or, Cricut is a business and they need to make money, and, we need to kind of understand that, changes will happen. So there was a lot of, obviously this sparked a lot of fiery conversations around the internet. And that's why we wanted to get together and talk, because I think to the general public who's watching YouTube videos or reading blogs, when an influencer has a business relationship with a company, they're contractually obligated to certain responsibilities and things that they may not be able to do, like disparage the name of the brand, right?
Yeah, I think people don't necessarily think about that. It is spelled out. If you ever sign a larger influencer contract, usually somewhere in there is a line about you cannot disparage the brand, you cannot say anything negative about the brand, and a lot of times you are not allowed to feature direct competitors with the brand. So you will sometimes end up locking yourself into this loyal monopoly with them. And I will be honest, I've seen this line and I've said, yes, of course, that makes sense. That makes total sense. Why would they hire someone who's just going to talk nonsense about their brand? Of course. But when something like this happens, I do feel for the Cricut influencers who feel like they have to stay silent on this. They did sign a legal contract. So I think people who are demanding that Cricut influencers speak up and disparage the brand, I don't think that's fair, because there are legal ramifications to that. Now, I do think this is different for the folks who are not just staying silent, but are actually trying to defend these actions, which we all know are not very defendable. That is a little different. And I think that is a level of loyalty delusion that is kind of, you are now being unauthentic as opposed to trying to you are now being inauthentic as opposed to giving the community your honest opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing about that is that by Cricut having stayed silent up until Tuesday when they finally released their statement and letting their YouTube influencers and their influencer partners take all of the heat.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, you are letting these people who, yes, you're compensating, but not very well, function as your PR like aggro dummies.
Yeah, sort of like a meat shield for Cricut, which was I think a bit unfair.
It was 4 days until they released an official statement, and until then, their influencers were on their own, left to defend the company.
I would not be surprised if there was nothing sent to the influencers.
Absolutely.
I would highly doubt anything was sent to the influencers about like, here's some language you could use, or here's how you should approach it. And as an influencer, I think that can be very scary, like to have people turn on you and to have people sort of demand that you do things that legally you can't, and you're not really sure how to approach that. So I do think that there's ethical questions to talk about for people who are deflecting, but at the same time, I do have some, I don't necessarily approve of what they're doing, but I have some sympathy for it because it can be scary, and you do feel sort of on your own.
There's different levels to it, I think, and people are behaving in different ways. And so, I would discourage anyone from dumping all Cricut influencers into a this thing bad bucket over here. Like, people do have legal obligations, and asking people to open themselves up to be sued, I do not think that is fair.
Yeah. And I've seen a few things put out by ex-Cricut influencers, and I'm noticing a pattern. These ex-influencers were Auntie Tay, Ken's Creations with a K for Creations, and Leah Griffith. And all of them basically said, because I wasn't willing to be exclusive to Cricut or talk exclusively about Cricut, I was no longer in the circle. So that seems to be, and again, we cannot confirm that, but that seems to be what everyone is saying that was at one point in the Cricut club.
That sounds pretty common to me. I know with at least sewing machine influencer contracts, there is a very similar tagline. With those, the ones that we've worked with, you are allowed to talk about other products, of course, but you cannot talk about direct competitors.
Yeah, and I've dealt with the same thing. I think very early on in the Sewing Report, I did this brand deal that was pretty horrible. I won't say the name, but I got free products, and I got to do like a giveaway to my viewers. I had to sign a contract saying that I would not mention any direct competitors, and it wasn't just for one product, it was like a whole category. And I was not allowed to talk about any competitor or feature any competitor for like 4 months, and they didn't pay me any money. I would never sign that now or agree to that. Yeah. That was pretty crazy. And thinking back, I was like, that made 0 sense. So for anyone out there that's an aspiring influencer, or you're kind of smaller and you're trying to grow, please know that deals like that don't benefit you. If they are demanding exclusivity, they should be ponying up enough for it to be worthwhile for you. And you also have to decide on your own, is that the right decision for your brand? You only get one reputation. If you lose your audience trust and they don't feel like you are being 100% with them, they are not going to stay with you as an audience member. So you not only have to think about the money, but you really, I think it's so important in this space to put people first. Put people before the money and put people before yourself. I was talking on my live stream the other night. I would not have been able to make that original Cricut video that picked up some steam if I'd had a bunch of sponsorships. even if it wasn't necessarily a Cricut sponsorship, say I had a partnership with Joanne Fabrics or Michaels, they are both very big business partners with Cricut. So I probably wouldn't be able to do that. And I think if one thing that this whole incident has shown us is that it is important to have some creators with the freedom and independence to talk about these issues and to hold these brands accountable.
Right. Yeah, the what you were talking about in terms of new influencers not necessarily knowing what they're getting into, I think that is really common, and especially in the cosplay community, honestly, because there is this mindset that anyone can be an influencer. Small, like no one is really a superstar giant, save for a couple of folks who work really hard.
Yaya.
Oh yes, yeah. How many followers does she have now? Probably.
She's
probably
the queen of cosplay, as far as I'm concerned.
She's queen of my heart. But it does kind of perpetuate this idea that anyone can be an influencer. And there's so many brands out there who do want to work with smaller folks, and it's really exciting. But I think it unfortunately opens the door for some of these smaller influencers to get sucked into things that are not good deals or are genuinely bad for them. I don't know if you have any thoughts about what to look out for in terms of that kind of thing, or anything you've experienced. I know you talked about the one really bad.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was horrible. I would say, and you mentioned this in your video about influencers and collabs, which I thought was an amazing video. I have a lot of the same experiences. Some of the offers I get are just ridiculous. It's like you have to buy the product. I also get, and you mentioned this, we get offered, even for our size of followers, ridiculously low deals. I was offered, I think we were both offered about the same offer from one very large company that we know has a lot of money. They offered us a $100 gift card to the store and some free materials to do a sponsorship. And I was like, that is not for me. $100 for a video that would probably take me 20 to 30 hours to produce is not something that's in my best interest. You know, and it also depends on, is this a video you would actually, like, I think if this is not a video I would normally do, that also kind of answers whether you should do it or not. I got one kind of recently. I think they were offering me like again, it was like a $50 Visa gift card, or it was something that sounded really sketchy if I used their product to make a craft. And this is not a product I would normally feature on the channel or do, like, that's not the type of stuff I do. So you have to think, when these offers come your way, is this a good fit for what you're doing? And if it's not, that's a pretty easy answer, that you know that it's probably not the right deal for you.
Well, I think that what's interesting about new influencers is that because there's so much pressure and there's so much competition to sort of get your foot into the influencer door, you never want to, like, people don't want to say no to anything, or people very undervalue their own brand. Like you as an influencer have a brand, you have an identity, you have people who watch you because they like you and they trust you. And if you don't value that, or you don't value that relationship with your viewers, then, and just say yes, it really sort of devalues you as an influencer.
Yes, and
it's hard.
And I don't think that statement is isolated to just new influencers at all, by the way. I think this is a trap that unfortunately a lot of people do fall down. And like what you were saying in terms of, is this brand appropriate for my channel? I think an even more narrow take on that, especially with cosplay, is this something that I would honestly recommend to people?
Yeah.
I think that's just the most basic question that you sometimes need to ask yourself. And if you are picky in terms of what you are going to advocate for, that you can remain authentic. Like, we will only advocate for things that we really like. If we ever, for some reason, receive something that did not work great for us, I'm going to be upfront about what was good about it and what was bad about it. Because the problem is when you enter into a contract with a company, you feel the pressure to only say good things about them. And, we're seeing that with Cricut, both for the people who feel like they have to stay silent for legal reasons, but also from people who are not staying silent and who are just still singing the praises. You want to say good things about your partner. And the problem with when you begin saying things that may not necessarily be true is there's a lot of young people and there's a lot of people who are listening to you, and you could be telling them something inaccurate and wrong. And, you didn't want to do it maliciously, but that information stays in the community and it can be kind of harmful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what's interesting with this Cricut situation too is when we were talking initially, you had mentioned that cosplayers were all on fire about it because none of them have Cricut connections. So I thought that was interesting.
I did not even realize that that a Cricut sponsorship was a thing, because I did, because I watched their tutorials. Oh, okay.
Skull's got the dish.
They have entire Cricut rooms. Like how we have our sewing room, they'll have like rolls of vinyl. They have their multiple machines and a shelf. Oh my God.
And a lot of them have that dream. I've noticed so many have that dream box craft room shelf unit too, which I think I looked at the price and it was crazy expensive. So I do sometimes think the general audience, when they're looking at influencers with all this expensive stuff, I do think you also run the risk of coming across a little bit out of touch. And that's one of the reasons, on my channel, I don't use exceptionally expensive machines because I'm really trying to cater to a beginner audience. And I know people who are just learning how to sew, they're not going to run out and get a $10,000 sewing machine.
Yeah, and they don't need a $10,000 machine.
This is actually something that I have seen people talking about in the cosplay community really recently, which is people feel alienated from, I think there must be some specific instance that sparked this, as always happens on Twitter. But if you ask an influencer, what would you recommend for me, a beginner, and their answer is a sewing machine that costs the same price as a car, you are not only sounding out of touch, but you are kind of implying that you can't do this and you can't create without these expensive products. And again, it's not from a malicious place. It's because we just want to, ride that easy choo-choo train and just say things that sound really great for the brand that we're working with. And yeah, of course, I'm using whatever machine this is that they sent me for free. So I'll just tell you to use that as well.
Yeah.
But, for folks who are new to accepting contracts, or people who want to be better brand influencers, you always want to stop and think about who you are talking to. If someone says, what embroidery machine do you use? I usually tell them what I use, which was gifted to us. And then I follow it up with saying, but here's some other more accessible options you might want to look into. Because there's no one right machine or brand for anybody.
For people who do want to spend a car on a sewing machine, I would wholeheartedly endorse the machine that we got.
She loves it.
It's a great machine, but it's not accessible for everyone.
Right.
Yeah, and sometimes these recommendations, they're so personal. When people ask you, what sewing machine do you recommend for beginners? It's a really tough question to answer because it really depends on so many factors. What they're planning to sew, how much their budget is, where they live, and it's just there's not one canned generic answer you can give somebody.
No, you are still an individual. You are not a machine for that brand. You can still formulate your own opinions.
Yeah. And I think that that's the only ethical thing to do as an influencer. It's so exciting to be given free things, and you're making videos and people are posting and they're like, oh, thanks for this. And it's you have a responsibility to your audience. You are advertising using your reputation and your face. And the brand doesn't care, so you need to care.
Well, I think people don't realize that the brand does not care as much as you think it does. I think there's an idea that, well, if I do a really, really, really good job and I convince 20 of my friends to start using this stuff and I only talk about this brand, that I am going to get more opportunities to get my foot in the door more. And I have not experienced that.
No, me either. We've seen this a lot with the quilting world. a lot of like fabric companies or pattern designers or whatnot, what will happen is they'll go to these people with like 10,000 Instagram followers, something like that. And some of these influencers will sew an entire quilt and take photos of it for like an Instagram shout out in free fabric and little to no money. I think that practice needs to go away. If you are a brand and you are not paying a quilter to make an entire quilt, you're I'm sorry, but you are in the wrong. And it's also cost. Yeah, and I think the crazy thing is then they get into that cycle. I think the influencers that are doing this, they are people that aren't necessarily relying on that income. They're kind of doing it as a hobby or something. But I don't think they realize they're undercutting everyone else in the space. And what ends up happening is that these companies then never will pay anyone more money, because why should they have to when they can always find someone who will do it for free and for some fabric and an Instagram shout out. And these people that think they're building the Instagram followers to lead to lucrative deals, even at our size of followers, which we're in the tens of thousands, you have 100K on Instagram, I've got about 67,000 on YouTube, we still get very ridiculous offers every single day. So please don't think that by growing your audience, it's going to be super lucrative. So that's why you should take these lowball offers now. Please know that it's, in our experience, it has not gotten any better.
Yeah. No, and you know, if something is right for you, like for instance, if someone, I actually do still take free product from certain companies that I love, and I use them all the time. I want the product, and
I was going to give them my money anyway.
So I don't want to condemn necessarily straight out anyone who says, well, I want to do this, I want to do it for free because I want the thing. You know, you just have to think about what's right for you,
what it is
worth your time to do it. And if it's making a whole quilt, the answer is no.
For some fabric that costs like $75 or something, and I'm like, isn't that crazy? And this is not, I think that's the difference between our influencer space and like say beauty. If you get a free lipstick, you just have to put it on and take a photo. This is not sewing an entire project. So the time commitment for different niches are vastly far apart. Yeah. And I think that's that's kind of the dilemma, I think, of being in the sewing and making space, is that everything we do is pretty time consuming.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And the rates that you should be expecting are going to be different depending on what they're asking for you. Yeah. Do they want you to just pop a hat on or whatever it is, or do they want you to make an entire costume to advocate for their video game? You know, those are two wildly different price points that you should be asking for.
I mean, I don't, there's no point in being an influencer if you are making like under minimum wage.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, yeah, I guess being an influencer is more exciting than like working at Walmart, but at the same time, you know, the downsides are stronger, you know.
Yeah. There's definitely easier ways to make money, for sure.
There's a lot of ways to make money.
And there's ways to make consistent money. Like, I also want to be clear, and I'm not even sure if I mentioned this in my last influencer video, but crafters, like cosplayers and like high level crafters, we do not get as many influencer sponsorships as you might think. It is unusual to get those, honestly, even us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, me either. And when I first got into doing this, I was talking to a friend, and she warned me, and she's been doing this for a very long time. She said, these crafting companies do not have deep pockets for marketing. No. And she was 100% right, because even these large names everybody knows, they're still emailing me and offering me $100. And I'm like, yeah, no thanks. It's not hard to turn that down.
Not to have deep pockets, because there's always going to be somebody who's wanting to.
Yep, somebody, and they're doing this because they can. You know, I want to ask you: have you ever been totally hosed by a brand deal, like taken for a ride or anything like that?
I don't
have to think about it.
I can't think of one off the top of my. We're kind of picky.
Okay.
Because we both have real jobs, and so usually if it's an offer that's just absolutely ridiculous, I'm like, well, I would rather just work overtime for 2 hours.
We also don't, we don't really receive.
Yeah, we also don't get that many.
And so we don't receive a lot, and then I also don't accept a lot.
Yeah.
So usually I only want to move forward with a brand that I genuinely really like, or something that is worth our time doing. And unfortunately, that is a Venn diagram that does not have a very large piece in the middle. Fortunately, no, we have not been hosed by anybody yet. I've received some very stupid offers, though.
Strange, yeah. So I've had a couple situations where I did like a video because they sent me something, and then the company went out of business. So that's happened to me a few times. And then there have been a few occasions where what happened? They said they were going to do a giveaway for my audience, and then they ghosted me and didn't fulfill the giveaway.
No.
So that's happened a couple times. So I don't accept that anymore. I'm like, and what I ended up doing was the winner, I ended up paying out of my own pocket for a prize. Like I gave them because I'm like, I can't just leave this person high and dry that won the prize. And the company literally just ghosted. And then like this one company just totally disappeared. So like that's one thing. I think it's a red flag if it's not a well-known brand name, like it's like something out of China or something that you've never heard of. That can be a red flag that is maybe not super legit.
You know what I actually do want to warn about, because I did not mention it in our influencer video. Getting hosed. There's a whole lot of Amazon scammers. I didn't include it in the scam video because they're really not necessarily scammers. Some might be legit. But basically, if you receive a request to say, hey, review this product on Amazon and you get it for free, a lot of the times they just don't refund you the money. So
did you buy the product?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you review it and then they PayPal you.
Yes. So that is not an influencer deal. They send that to everybody.
Yeah, I've gotten a few of those, and I don't think
they're Amazon influencers. They're like top reviewers that they pay more.
Right. But that's something you can very easily get hosed on.
And what's funny about that is you're no longer allowed to make an Amazon review if you got a product for free. So I've had companies that sent me a free thing from their Amazon thing, and then they said, hey, we need you to do an Amazon review. And I said, Amazon will not let me do a review on it. And they got really upset. So but they still keep doing that even though it's against the rules. So that's pretty sketchy, isn't it?
Why don't they just mail it from their corporate address?
I'm okay with people doing reviews as long as they're very explicitly you're like, I got this for free. But then I'm like mentally like, okay, so 1 star down.
Yeah. But now Amazon won't, like, if you say like they ask you, did you get this for free or at a discount? And if you check yes, you can't leave a review on Amazon. So they're trying to weed those types of things out.
They're really common.
Yeah. What do you think brands could do better in the influencer space as far as working with people like that?
I think a lot of the problems with the influencer space, and you see this especially with like the Cricut situation, is that all of the power is with the brand. The influencers feel very much like they're stuck in a corner or they have no options, that, it's worth throwing away their name and their reputation to defend a company who's doing something that's honestly very indefendable in this case, because you're their influencer and isn't that your job? And you feel obligated to defend the company and you signed a contract that you can't say anything bad. So maybe you have to say something good, or there's a big power differential. And I think if a company was really interested in being ethical, they would offer terms that are more equitable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it does seem like, as much as like, I don't really do sponsor videos at this point, and I also don't accept free products in exchange for anything. If someone sends me something, I said, you're welcome to send it, but I don't guarantee anything. So if you still want to send it. And that's actually weeded a lot of people out, but I'm glad for that, because if that's how they want to do business, I don't want to do business that way. But I think our problem is that if people like you and I do not accept these lowball offers, there's always somebody else that will. So we're kind of stuck in this perpetual cycle of just not being compensated very well anyways.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, unfortunately. But I think the main thing right now is like for individuals to protect themselves. So, you guys make good informed decisions. And if you do accept a partnership, make good informed decisions and speak, from the heart about the product and, remain authentic in that way.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
you can always, if you're an influencer and somebody sends you something, you can always, email the brand and be like, I know you sent this to me, but I can't do a video because it's bad.
We've done that.
I'll just don't say anything. Like, you don't have to make a video crapping all over them.
Just say, hey, when you've done that, how do the brands respond to you? Are they open to criticism?
So there's only 2 times we've ever done it. One of the times we were sent an experimental product. It wasn't out yet. And we received the product and then we said, well, we made a thing with it, but it's really bad. And here's our feedback on why the product is bad. And this is a small cosplay company and they're fantastic. And she replied back with, yep, this is a bad product. We're going to change it. So it totally worked out.
That's great that they listen to you and they listen to the customers to get feedback. I think that's a good way for a company to operate.
I think she knew it was already kind of like, but they wanted some more opinions on it. But that is also kind of the upside to working with a smaller company who actually genuinely cares about their products and the people using the products as well.
At least until they go for their IPO, then it all goes, I guess, down the drain.
All bets are off.
Yeah, it's fine.
I mean, Cricut has a whole history of doing shady things. So,
so if you were a Cricut influencer, what would you be like? I don't even know what I feel like they put the influencers in such an awkward spot.
They did. Absolutely.
I don't know what I would do, especially if my entire channel was all Cricut crafts.
Oh my god!
I would take a hiatus.
Yeah,
I think
that's on hiatus.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just me and my kids are going camping this weekend.
You can't. I mean, you're stuck. You sign a contract and you are stuck. Unfortunately.
Yep.
Nothing doing. All right. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on?
No, but I'm just so glad we got to talk about this because there just have been so many questions and a little bit of mystery surrounding the whole influencer ecosystem. And I feel like a lot of people watching might not know how it really works. So this has been really cool to talk to you guys and also to compare some of our experiences. I think we have a lot of the same experiences.
Oh yeah. And I mean, everyone is fascinated by the whole influencer sphere thing. Everyone wants to get involved and everyone wants to hear stories. The Cricut influencers are what kind of sparked this entire conversation. And if you guys are interested in learning more about the entire Cricut debacle that is going on right now, we actually just did a deep dive into Cricut's financial goody drama, as well as the SEC report. That is over on Jen's channel right now, Sewing Report on YouTube. You can get to it from our fun little cards that we are going to put here. Also, if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, pet your cats, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video soon.